Slow agricultural commodities continues to move the markets. Jerry Gidel is here again to explain all of that and more right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Jerry, we have had the week where the markets are really slow. We have had also some signs that the war would end, but we have had some attacks earlier this week, but still the oil market is still going down, and the agricultural commodity markets are all in the red, except for a small rally of soybeans on Friday. But I think the big highlight is wheat 30% lower, 30 cents lower than the previous week.
Yes, it's been kind of a twisted logic scenario as well. The concept was that the things in the East were moving along and all that type of thing. I can't say that that is what happened here late in the week, and particularly after the markets closed here on Friday, uh, when the Iranians had the second kind of attacks on shipping in the Straits of Hormuz, and they even took some action against Bahrain. That does an indication that things are moving well and that if we're going to have a peace treaty that lasts, we're not supposed to be shooting at each other in the Persian Gulf. So, to some extent, uh, that issue still is not. The, both sides kept talking up about how things were progressing, but I think the one thing it continues, and it will be how they're going to work it out, I don't know, is the whole issue of the stored uranium that's still in Ukraine, or not Ukraine, in Iran, and I think that is going to be how they get that worked out, and so both sides feel good about that. Versus, I don't think the Iranians want it shipped out, and the U.S. doesn't want it to stay in Iran. So that's going to be the big issue that's going to finally, now that gets settled, will finally be the big factor if this thing is going to actually get a peace treaty finalized at this point. But there's lots of other things popping around these days. The heat situation in Europe this last week definitely put a lot of strain on their crops over there. Geez, they had like over 105, I think it was in Paris or higher, near record level if it wasn't and that. So that's putting strains on their wheat crop, even on their corn crop. France has a lot of corn too, from that standpoint. And here in the U.S., we're going to have our first uh, above normal, extremely above normal. Here in Chicago, they're projecting a 98-degree temperature, which is we've had higher than that, but not significantly higher. We've just had the temps back in 1988 and 2012 where we had things in the 100 to 103 or 4 degree situation. So definitely going to be a warm hin going into the national holiday next weekend.
Yeah, so that has affected the progress of the wheat harvest in the plains. But when it comes to corn, I think the news are better for the crop, not precisely for the market.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, we have been. That's a real twist in this thing is that the April weather, we had such heavy moisture around the Midwest at that point. So we didn't plant as much corn at that point. And then we had a very wide open May and we had a lot of corn being planted. And to some extent, the corn development was maybe slightly behind. So this heat here in late June will probably perk it up and progress it further along in its growth cycle from there. But the other twist of it is that, uh, and we have had some rains, as I said, Nebraska to straight across to Indiana, and that has been will be a positive with some heat. But the tricky scenario on this whole thing is that we don't need. a complete flip over on this thing to extreme heat uh, uh, from being behind. That doesn't help a corn crop either along the way from that standpoint. The market interestingly enough, even the Soviets trimmed their wheat crop because of the heat that they've seen in that. Not huge, took off a million, million and a half down to 89 from 90 plus in that. But everybody's gun shy about extreme heat in the summertime. It's never very good for agricultural products.
For soybeans, what do you see as the factor that kept soybeans on the positive or not as bad as the other commodities?
Well, I think the soybeans have been on the defensive a little longer, and that they're down at pretty inexpensive levels. And I think that the producers in the U.S. have been limited in their desire to sell soybeans here, just below the 10 50 kind of level in the cash or 1075 and that. So I think that's part of what's going on is that, and I think it's generally the situation here uh, in the world at this point. Uh, the South American harvest is pretty well behind us. The interesting twist on it was, and this kind of comes back to the corn too. There was a slight reduction in Brazil's second crop corn type situation. It still looks like it's going to be well, even the CONAB took their number down 3 to 5 million metric tons, closer to the U.S. number at 140 million versus last year's 150 million total corn number. So that was an interesting twist at the end of the week, and that to some extent. The northern producing areas in Brazil uh, have had just a little less moisture than I think they desire. So that'll be interesting. One thing, too, you talked about the soybeans. We will get an update on the U.S. soybean crush excuse me, next week after the USDA's stocks and acreage number, and that well, we're going to have a pretty solid number here. I think we're the USDA's uh, number on brush, I think, is a tad low. I think it's going to be higher than that, but I'm looking for 216 million during the month of during the month of May here in the U.S., which is a pretty solid number. So we'll have to see what that has. That's another feature for next week to look at things after we see the crop report numbers on Tuesday. From there, uh,
Yeah, so what other update? We already talked about your estimates last week, but if you have an update for now for any of the crops, let us know.
oh yes, that's actually what we need to cover right now is that the Reuters survey came out and that, and we did see ahead of this thing uh, that Informa's numbers didn't see a big decline. Their numbers were in this oh 3 to 500,000 acres less than last month. I still am quite surprised that the core number, because of the declining prices we had and that during the month of May, despite the fact that, well, part of it was the fact we were finally getting in the fields, but even then, I kind of feel like with such limited amount of progress during the month of April this year on plantings, that their expectations is for only a 345 million down. I'm actually looking for potentially as much as a million down or more. on U.S. corn plantings. At the same time, they're looking for a respectable 660 million, excuse me, thousand acres, 660,000 acres more of soybeans. But I kind of feel like that number might be closer to a million one. So those are going to be the highlight numbers that the trade will be looking at on the acreage update on next Tuesday. From there, uh, the spring wheat numbers. Uh, and that because of some of the coolness and limited plantings in corn and soybeans in the northern plains, people are looking for a little increase in both durum and uh, spring wheats. I kind of the trades there. I mean, a little higher than they are by 100,000 acres, but no big deal. The From that standpoint. The twist that's probably also quite interesting to look at is see what does those acres in the Southwest that was hit by drought that now has had some moisture since then, will they go ahead and take a shot at planting on cotton down in some of those acres down there in Texas and the Southwest or not? I kind of feel like that the trade's not looking for a big increase there. I'm kind of looking for maybe uh, uh, 250, 300,000 from there and some higher sorghum. But the other big feature that's is always watched in these reports is the quarterly stocks report. And that will be quite interesting here. Corn numbers have, on the two previous ones back in December and March, have shown a very, very aggressive feed demand number. And that's been part of the reason why the USDA has a 6.2 billion bushel number on corn. But you the look at the uh, livestock numbers. Now, cattle, we did see a slight increase in numbers of cattle here as they came off of uh, wheat pasture, and there wasn't any place to keep them out there because of the drought and that. But at the same time, that isn't the reason why we've been maybe feeding as much corn as we have has because of the fact we're feeding the cattle to a higher weight, which means less efficiency in that. But we just got an update here on the quarterly hogs reports this week, and the overall number was just nearly unchanged. There was ideas that could see a percent increase. Breeding animals actually slipped a little bit, but we continue to have a very strong litter size keeps going up. But overall, the pork numbers look like they're kind of unchanged, maybe slightly up. Same thing on chicken. So I'm wondering if we won't see a number uh, below 5.4. That if you calculate what normally would be and what's going on with some of these additional cattle numbers in the feed yards because of the coming off wheat pasture, and that 5.4 is where the trade is where I'm at. But if somehow or other we're at 5.3 or 5.2 and a half, and that billion bushels, that to me suggests that the crop size of last year was overestimated. We'll have to see if that turns out to be the case. Beans, uh, looking at this, the numbers there on shipments and things like that, the trade is at 5.046 and I'm at 5.05. So not much. The exports and crush have been pretty easy to figure out. That's the only two things you have to look at. You don't have this kind of mysterious feed demand number that you have in corn. So I think that's interesting. The ending carryover stock on wheat is kind of an afterthought. We're going to be so looking at the new crop size more than we're looking at the stocks. I kind of feel like they might see a slight increase over the USDA's 935, but the trade's just using the previous estimate on what kind of carryover stock we'll have. So in general, we're going to have some data this coming week. I think the weather's going to be highly important here with this extreme heat moving into the Midwest. Look at it's going to carry through all the way to 4th of July, starting on Monday through Saturday of this coming week in the Chicagoland. So definitely going to be a warm one, and I would sense that's going to provide at least a little stability here as people start to wonder about the impact on U.S. yields. But it's the most important part of that is going to be mid to late month when heat uh, could be impacting pollination. Right now, we're still just getting a few areas of the country that might be starting to pollinate next week. And so the numbers are assuming the U.S. progress on corn development will start to mid-month and after, and that's when the market needs to be really focused on what's happening then.
Thank you very much.
Have a good weekend, and we'll see what the numbers are on Tuesday.